Thousands of refugees have crowded a camp in Bunzanze, Burundi, near the border with Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, fleeing the advance of M23 fighters backed by Rwandan troops. Burundi's Interior Ministry reported on Monday that nearly 10,000 people had crossed into the country in the past 3 days as Rwanda-backed forces intensified their offensive in eastern DRC. Officials say refugees are entering Burundi through the Gantuba border post or crossing the Ruzizi River. The government, in collaboration with the United Nations Refugee Agency, is working to identify civilians, soldiers, and the sick, while also providing shelter and humanitarian aid. The M23 armed group has seized large swaths of territory in recent weeks, displacing hundreds of thousands, and over the weekend entered Bukavu, the capital of South Kivu province. And now to discuss this, we're joined by international journalist Thamsanqa Zhou. Mrs. Zhou, thanks so much for joining us. Let's just get started, shall we? I mean, how would you assess the current security situation in the eastern DRC, particularly in regions like North and South Kivu? And what are the driving factors? What are the factors that are driving the escalation of this violence so far that we've seen?
Hi, Judith. Thank you for having me, and good evening to your listeners. What is happening in the eastern side of the Democratic Republic of Congo is worrying. There is conflict that is ongoing. There are talks, efforts to bring peace to the region that are ongoing. Not so long ago, the leaders of East Africa and Southern Africa, because the DRC belongs to the two regional bodies, East and South, because of the size of the country, met in Tanzania to try and resolve what's going on. There were, agreements that there would be ceasefire. So the information that came that Bukavu in South Kivu had been taken over by M23 came as a surprise to some who thought that maybe there would have been, observance of that peace agreement, or at least the ceasefire in the process. So it is worrying, which is why you see a lot of influx of refugees and people moving. Just an example, Bukavu, which is in the south of Kivu, the two provinces, North Kivu and South Kivu, Goma, which was taken in January, late January, is in the north. And then in the south is Bukavu. Bukavu itself is about 1 million people. So you would think that there would be a lot of, concerned people, communities, because these are areas that have got different ethnic groups that have been, at one end of the conflict or the other for decades, in fact, Judith.
And what is the role of armed groups like the M23 in the ongoing conflict? How do they manage to operate so effectively in such a complex environment? And what is their long-term strategy at this point?
Well, you have to understand the historic view. If I take Nigeria as an example, you had different kingdoms before the colonial times, and those kingdoms had borders. And then if you then have this Berlin Conference that then, ignores the borders that were there with the kingdoms, that can create problems. So this eastern side of the Democratic Republic of Congo has always had parts which belonged to some kingdoms that were part of the Congo, and some kingdoms that were, or some communities that were part of the Rwanda kingdom at the time. So you find that the Kivu has always had Tutsi, ethnic Tutsi populations, as well as other ethnic groups in that. And over the years, there have been conflicts with administrations in Kinshasa, which is thousands of miles away, and compared to probably the neighbors in Rwanda, Burundi, and Uganda. So in the latest move, you would think that all those rebel groups that have been there over the years whether there was Mobutu Sese Seko and then the Kabila administration and now the Tshisekedi administration, there are always conflicts in that area that are led by different groups. Some are aligned to Kinshasa, some of them by the locals with support from some of the neighboring countries. So it's a very complex thing indeed. But also in terms of their strategy, what they were saying when they started this was that they wanted to take Goma, they take Bukavu, they take Kisangani, they could keep going, Lubumbashi, until they get to Kinshasa and talk with the administration there. And which is why the regional forces and other people came in and said, hang on a minute, you can't do that, or you will not be allowed to do that. Yet for countries like Rwanda, their interest mainly is security. The people in Rwanda will tell you that they want assurance and a buffer from the Democratic Republic of Congo along the border. They don't want people they allege were involved in the 1994 genocide to come back from next door to attack Rwanda. So it's very complex. It's not as simple as people think it might be, which is why a solution is difficult to come by. Judith?
Yeah, well, I mean, so you've done a fantastic job in just trying to simplify this as much as you can. We want to say thank you for taking out the time to join us on the show. Many thanks.